Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Lee Ramey, User Experience Librarian at Beaufort County Library in South Carolina, and I am so excited about our next presentation. I know we all look forward to looking at all the wonderful resources for the Summer Reading Manual. So our next session is Unearth a Story 2026 Manual Highlights with Amanda Raiche. Amanda serves as the CSLP content editor after years of working in public libraries, as a youth services librarian and a youth services coordinator in a state library. She earned her MILS from Kent State University and lives with her family in South Dakota. And we are ready to get it started. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great. So thank you, Lee, for the introduction. My name, like she said, is Amanda Raiche. I'm excited to be serving as the content editor here at CSLP. And I'm very excited to be able to share some of the manual highlights for next summer coming up here. First, I'm going to share a little bit about the layout of the manual. We have a few changes that I want to share, and then a few of the features that I wanted to point out. And then we'll dig into some fun programming ideas. And then we'll finish up and I'll share just a few resources that you can continue to explore on your own for even more ideas. So first, the CSLP manual starts with a couple table of contents options, one by chapter, and then another one um, by age. Both are linked to the programs within the manual, which makes them great for exploring and easy navigating. And you'll actually see lots of links throughout the manual in the table of contents and the programs, the tips and adaptations sometimes have them, the resources, and so on. So it's very user friendly. A couple changes from previous years that you'll see. Our getting started information that is typically chapter 1 in previous years has now moved to our website. That's still in the process. We're continuing to build that and add that. But we'll be sure to add more information and share that out with you once it's ready to go. So keep an eye on our future newsletters. That's where we'll probably be sharing that. And if you haven't signed up already, go ahead and do that to make sure you get all that info. Here's a list of our chapters you'll see in the manual. That while dinos are definitely highlighted, we take a wide look at the theme of Unearth a Story to include a well-rounded group of programs so that it's not just dinosaurs. We also have things like archaeology, rocks and soil, gardening, research, digging into history, and so there's a lot of different program ideas for a lot of different people. And I wanted to take a minute first to say a big thank you to our manual chairs and committee members, our manual committee members, for all the hard work they put into this manual to make it so well-rounded and amazing for all of you. So we have chapter 1 is Dino Play. That's a lot of fun crafts and games, some anthropomorphic dino stuff. Chapter 2, Fresh Dirt, has some rocks and soil and gardening information, things that can really let them dig into the dirt. Chapter 3, Digging for Information, has some programs about local history, family history, learning about research tools, digging into our past. Chapter 4 is Paleontology. Chapter 5, Archaeology. And then Chapter 6, we wanted to include a chapter that helps you all pull some ideas for celebrating America 250 since that's coming up next summer. And then another new thing this year is we have a partnership program chapter, and this year it's chapter 7, where we share some programs from a few of our wonderful partners. And then additional programs from our partners may become available going forward. And if we have any more of those, they'll be populated in our online manual. So keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, we end with a chapter of standalone printables, things like reading logs, certificates, bingo cards, coloring, activity sheets, different things for various ages. And then we have our book list. We have a comprehensive book list of all of the books, all the languages. And then we also have them broken into bilingual Spanish and English. And then, of course, we finish up with our handy dandy index for really quick referencing. Each chapter starts with a chapter-specific table of contents and then moves into our early literacy materials. That includes things like our storytime book suggestions for babies all the way up to preschoolers, songs, finger plays, flannel board activities, and then some fun stay and play style activities for those younger kids that work with our chapter topic. Then the chapter moves into programs for children, tweens, teens, adults, multi-generational, covers all the ages. And you'll see that program age ranges can certainly overlap in these programs, and that makes it really versatile. We show which age range might be a really good fit using color-coded tabs at the top of the pages. So you'll still see those, but I encourage you to really dig in and look at the different programs because they are very flexible. Like previous years, you'll find lots of tips and adaptations in the sidebars, and there's web resources and book suggestions throughout the manual for those different programs. Okay, so it's question time now. Before I get into the programming, I wanted to hear from all of you. I'm going to go ahead and read the question. Think about your answer. I'll give you a few seconds to type it in, and then we'll hit enter at the same time so we can all see the answers and see what everybody's thinking all at once. So the question is, what aspect of the Unearth a Story theme are you most excited about? So is it the dinos? Is it maybe archaeology? Is it the gardening or research aspect? And I see some people are putting it in. So go ahead and put it in and hit enter. I'm excited to see the answers. A lot of dinosaurs. Yes, lots of dinosaurs, some gardening, some archaeology. Um, we knew the dinosaurs would be a big hit, but there's plenty of other things too if the dinosaurs aren't your main focus. So great. I am excited, and I'm excited to see all of you guys excited. Okay, if you're still putting your answer in, continue, go ahead, and I'm going to move on to some programming ideas. So first, we're going to start with some early literacy ideas. A couple to highlight are the Dino Dance-Off and Dino Yoga, both in Chapter 1, page 10 of the manual. And I'll note that the slides will be available later, so you can always reference them for page numbers later if you want to. But both of these programs are fun movement ideas for toddlers and preschoolers, which could be integrated into story times or done alone as a standalone program for families with younger children, or even a mixture of ages if you want to incorporate those older siblings. Dino Dance Off encourages children to listen and move to the music. Music and space to move is really all you need for this program. So it's very low maintenance. You invite the children to move how they think different dinos may have moved. How would a T-Rex dance? How would a dinosaur with wings move or dance? So you can keep it very open like this, or you could have more guidance. You could name certain dinos and show movements that go with each dino, and then lead them through the movements to the music. Again, this could be in the middle of a story time as a movement break, or a station at stay and play, or even you could make it bigger, add some decorations, make it a family event, a family dance party, all about dinos. Dino yoga is the same idea, but with a bit more structure because you're integrating those yoga poses. You're essentially renaming yoga poses with dino names. So one example in the manual is the tree pose could become the T-Rex pose, or maybe downward dog becomes the Stegosaurus. Use your imagination. This is a great outreach opportunity too. Maybe you have a local yoga instructor that you could invite to come and lead a special yoga story time and integrate those dino poses. Or you could talk with a local yoga studio and talk to them about maybe hosting a story time at their studio as a special outreach event. Move Like a Dino on page 105 can be used in programs or as a passive activity to send home. There's a printable cube that can be printed preferably on cardstock, cut and assembled. Each side of the cube has a different dino and a movement that goes along with it. Prepare the cubes and use them at a stay and play station, or use it as a break between story time books, or you can send the printable home for families to assemble and use on their own. You could also pull some dino books from the collection to put at a stay and play station with this cube and encourage them to, as a caregiver and child, find more information about the dinos on the cubes, or maybe find a dino not on the cube and decide how they think that dino would move. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And then another great adaptable program idea is Dig and Puzzle on page 209. In this program, you hide pieces of an appropriate aged puzzle in a bin of play sand or even rice or shredded paper, whatever diggable material you have on hand already. This is a great stay and play station again, or an activity for after story time to set out, or even a special passive activity that you put out in the children's area as maybe a special surprise one day. Um, Toddlers would probably really enjoy wooden puzzles, while preschoolers may have fun with puzzles that incorporate letters or numbers or words. Maybe those two-piece puzzles where one piece is a word or a letter or a number, and they have to find the matching second piece that has the picture that represents the letter or number or word. Also super adaptable to different ages by simply adjusting the size of the container and therefore how much digging, and then also how many pieces the puzzle is. Another adaptation to consider, strangely enough, is doing this for children or tweens or even teens as a minute to win it sort of game or challenge station. Keep the puzzle simple, maybe not a wooden puzzle simple, but fewer pieces, and have them rush to find all the pieces, put them together as a team to beat another group or to beat the clock or something. A bigger puzzle could be used in this situation for a family night, allowing those older children and teens and adults to piece the puzzle together, and younger kids can help find and dig for the pieces and sort them out. So you'll see that with adaptations, programs have so much flexibility. So beyond the early literacy stay and play activities at the start of each chapter, there are definitely adaptations or extensions to some of the programs for older children that can still benefit the early literacy age range. For example, on page 184, there's a dino drawing activity where older kids draw dinos to size with chalk in a large outdoor area like a barricaded parking lot. That's something that is perfect for those older kids, but you could even then afterwards have a story time group come out and color in the dinos or measure themselves against the height of the dinos. There's lots of ways to be flexible about this. So make sure you look through the programs with a creative eye. Now I'll move on to some children, teen, adult, and multi-generational programs, and they're kind of all mixed together because, like I said, there's a lot of adaptability there. I'm going to start with the Adopt-a-dino program for Chapter 1, page 21. It makes for a great multi-generational program, or it can be targeted for a specific age range, like children, tweens, or teens. In this program, you hide as many little dinos as you choose around your library. You attach tags that say adopt me and invite your patrons to find one and adopt it and take it home. The circulation desk can have adoption forms even for people to come fill out and name their dino, and then they can take him home. During the searching process, if this is going to be a program for many age ranges, you could color code the dino tags for ages or difficulty level. Maybe teens have to find the dinos with blue tags. And those are hidden a little harder than those for younger children with green tags. But think about the safety, different abilities, height when hiding them. So there's something for everyone within those age ranges. There's a lot of additional follow-up or extension program ideas that are included in the manual for this program. And they all kind of, some fit for different ages. So you can look through and find out what works for your program and what age range you're using. They have creative writing ideas, photography programs, and Lego building programs, such as, build a home or an environment for the Lego or for the dino you just adopted. You could incorporate social media, inviting your patrons to share photos and the name they choose. There are also a lot of different variations on the base or the scavenger hunt portion of this program that you can really mix up and make it work best for your library, your staff time, your budget. Instead of purchasing lots of small dinos, if you have a 3D printer, you could use the 3D printing files we recently added to the online manuals, and that's under graphic resources. You could print a bunch of little Digby's and hide those. And I wanted to have a moment to say thank you to the Vermilion Public Library, to Stephen and Prairie for helping us with those files that we now have available to all of you. You can have staff print a bunch of printable Digby's to hide. You could even roll this into a 3D printing program for teens where you use some free software online, something like Tinkercad. If you or another staff member or volunteer are familiar with those things, you could teach them how to make little 3D dino figures of their own, and maybe they print theirs and you use them to hide in your collection. So lots of different ideas there. Another possible option is to hide a single Digby figure, maybe the Digby squishy from the CSLP store, or a stuffed dino, or even your library's mascot, whether it's a dino or not. You can hide it within a single library building or multiple branches if you have branches. You announce the hunt on social media and within the library. Everyone can search for it. And once it's found, you can announce where it was hidden and optionally give that person a prize if you'd like, and then rehide it and announce that the scavenger hunt's back on. And this can continue for a short period of time or throughout the whole summer, of course. Here are a few programs on dino art and STEM. Pasta Paleontology is on page 140, and it's creating a dino skeleton with different pasta shapes. Like so many other programs, you can keep it simple or expand on it. Provide dino outlines or printed skeletons for younger children to use as a guide to glue the pasta skeleton on, or you can leave it open-ended and let the participants glue however they see fit in their own imagining. You could provide books or other images to inspire them to recreate a specific dino. This picture in the middle of the screen is an example of expanding the art element to this activity. You could provide materials for them to create a background to then glue their dino on. In this example, I used watercolor and just made a really simple background. I sprinkled salt on when it was still wet to add some texture. And then once the background was dried, I added the pasta right on top of it to make it look like the skeleton was waiting to be unearthed. You could add lots of different miscellaneous materials, even for them to explore and create with, and make it a really open-ended process art activity. Reduce, reuse, recyclosaurus is on page 19. It's an open-ended STEM activity using recyclable materials you collect ahead of time, or you can invite them to bring some of their own items from home if they're really excited about some things they've saved. Again, they can create whatever they wish, or you can provide books from your collection or images to inspire them to try to create a specific dino from history. Again, lots of different ways to incorporate different challenges for the different ages. They could build one dino as a group, or each build their own smaller dino. Children and tweens will likely necessitate a few volunteers to help with hot glue if you're doing this with younger kids, but teens could definitely handle this on their own, or maybe for younger kids, you want to stick to tape and white glue. "3D paper masks" on page 34 is a fun activity. I think tweens would really like this, but again, adaptable. You create large dino masks that would fit over your head using large rolls of paper that maybe you typically use for bulletin boards to create the overall head structure. And then you cut out additional paper and glue on for other features, or you can also, again, use additional craft materials you have on hand. They can create actual dinos, they can invent their own. For younger kids, you might want to offer some sort of pattern or guidance with this, but the older kids can have at it and make whatever they'd like. Another adaptation is to do this with cardboard to create a large dino head, which would take more materials and more engineering skills, certainly, to piece together. So it'd be a more involved project, but could be a great idea if you're looking for more of a challenge. Build-A-Dino on page 193 is a great fit for teens. You provide a variety of dino figures and toys for teens to disassemble and then reassemble to create their own sort of Franken-dino creation. And you can have, again, a selection of extra craft materials to add fun details to, like glitter glue, pom-poms, buttons, faux fur, really anything you have on hand, dig that out and let them have at it. Teens can create whatever they'd like, or you can offer extra challenges or prompts to add another element and some guidance. Maybe they have to construct the scariest dino or the dino that can move really fast. So having challenge cards could be a fun add-on. Or you could even have a cup full of popsicle sticks, and each popsicle stick you've written a different trait on it. So teens can pull a few sticks and then have to create something with all of those different traits to add that extra element of challenge. A fun way to finish this would be to add a showcase element, allowing teens to name and display their creation in the library for a little bit of time. I'm sure the teens will create some really interesting things, and I'm guessing a lot of people will have fun taking a look at them after. Because of the sharper cutting tools, that's why I say this is geared more for teens. Sharper cutting tools and hot glue would be most helpful for this project, but you could pre-cut things. You could have extra helping hands for cutting and hot gluing if you'd like to do this for younger kids. We have a few programs in the manual too that offer some great writing opportunities within them. The dinosaur name game activity on page 150 is a creative way to learn about root words and meaning. This program, as written in the manual, has a few different parts. So I'll kind of walk you through it, and then we'll talk about some ways you can use the different parts of it separately. After a bit of explanation that you give the group on how root words within a dinosaur's name works, how the dino name root words give the meanings that describe the dinosaur's traits. You can give everyone a printout of the root word chart found in the manual so they can see examples to explore. There's a small portion of this printout on the slide, but it's a lot bigger than that. So you'll see there's root words and then the meaning that matches with it. Then give everybody the dinosaur name list that's also found in the manual so they can play around with the chart. They can use the chart to decipher the meaning of the names of the dinosaurs on the list and write that down so they can play around with it a little bit. After that, invite the participants to draw a dino of their own creation, something from their imagination and all of its distinguishing features. Have them think about how it moves, where it lives, what it eats. It can be anything they'd like. Once they've drawn it, have them write down a description of it, whether it's a sentence or several or a couple words. Have them write down a description, and then they can determine a fitting name for their new dino using the root words and the meaning. The different parts of this program can be expanded and adjusted as you'd like. Make the art portion bigger and more involved by inviting the kids, make the art portion bigger and more involved by adding more materials, allowing more time for them to create the image of their dinosaur. You could also make it more involved in the writing aspect by encouraging them to write a more detailed story about their dinosaur. This is a great way to allow the participants to put more time into the portion that they enjoy the most. And so one kid might spend a lot of time on the art and one might spend more on the writing, and that's okay. This program is certainly full enough to stand on its own, but portions of it could be used as an option as a station in a bigger program, or even as a great add-on to one of the programs from the previous slides. So for example, after creating a dino out of recycled materials or the disassembled toys, they can then use the root word chart to give their creation an appropriate name. So you can definitely tie these things together. Journaling our community history on page 114 is a passive community journaling effort. You buy several notebooks, one for each journal prompt you'd like to have available. You write one prompt inside the front of each journal. The prompts could be about memories of events in your community's history, favorite local places, special celebrations, favorite stories of your town's history, whatever fits for your community. People can add their thoughts and memories for each prompt. You could put these journals in your system so people could then check them out, fill in their entry, and then bring them back for the next person. Or instead, if you want to keep them in-house and you don't want to circulate them, you could create a space for people to work on them in the library so they stay in the building. Either way, everyone can read other entries as they enter their own and share in the community's history and memories. Of course, might not be a bad idea for staff to take a quick peek at these journals as they come in and out of the building or while they're stationed in their space, just to make sure content is appropriate for everyone. And while the community journaling program is geared towards teens and adults, you could include younger participants too. You could either provide specific journals with prompts geared for younger children, or you could just allow anyone to add to any of the journals and maybe invite them to not just write, but draw their memories or their thoughts, allowing more people to participate in a way that fits for them. This could continue over the course of the summer, or it could be limited to a shorter period of time. And then at the end of the summer, either way, you'll have journals you can keep in your local collection for people to peruse, and that makes for a really nice keepsake of the summer. Food and Family History on page 121 is a wonderful adult program to celebrate and share family history and culture. You invite your participants to prepare and bring a dish that represents their family history, along with a written recipe to share or a personal family story if they want to share more. This can be super simple. You can organize it as just an adult program. You could open it up to families. You could also expand it to incorporate learning how to organize your recipes into a family cookbook. It could be a follow-up program, or just share resources that you have. Or even you could take the recipes from that activity, from that program, and compile them into a cookbook from that library event. And that could be a lot of fun. The pottery puzzle hunt is a nice hands-on activity for younger kiddos to explore the idea of an archaeological dig site. Set up the space with materials to color the pottery printout found in the manual. Also prep an open floor space by taping out a grid with large squares using masking tape or painter's tape. However many squares you choose, this can depend on the size of your group really and how much space you need. After the children color their pottery, they can cut it out and cut it into multiple numbered pieces. And how many pieces, you can let that be decided based on the target age of your group. But direct them to cut it into a certain number of pieces. That's important. That way, later when they're searching for it, they know how many pieces they're looking for. Or alternatively, you could draw in, once you print that printable from the manual, you could draw in cutting lines before you make copies, so everyone cuts it the same. It's really up to you. So if you want to do this with younger kids like preschoolers, you might only have it cut into 5 pieces. If you do it for older kids, it could be 15 or 20 or however many you choose. After the children have colored and cut up their pottery, a library staff person can spread the pieces out in different squares of the grid. Then the participants can either search for their own pot or someone else's, you can decide that, and they can work to find every piece that was hidden. After finding all the pieces, the children can then tape or glue the pieces of their pottery together on a larger construction paper. Older participants could expand this by, you can give them a small grid printout that matches the number of squares you taped on the floor. They can then record their findings like they're on an archaeological site, noting the piece number that they found and where on the grid they found it. And there's an example on the screen there. So you'll see that if they were searching and found piece number 3 in the upper right square, they'd put the number 3 right where they found it. Or if you'd like to extend the art element, let the participants draw and design their own pottery rather than using the printout. That's a great idea too. Just be sure again to determine how many pieces they will cut it into so people know how many they're searching for. Soil Explorers on page 72 is a hands-on project about the role of worms in decomposition. Participants build a worm hotel using a 2-liter bottle and a 16-ounce bottle, some sand, dirt, leaves, and a few other things. And then they get to observe what the worms do. You build the worm hotel by cutting off the top of the 2-liter bottle and placing the smaller water bottle inside in the center, purely just to take up some space and force that worm activity to stay on the outside of that bigger bottle where it's more visible. And make sure you take the label off, obviously. You then fill in that space around that smaller bottle with layers of sand and soil and dried leaves, and you make those about 1 inch thick. The soil is good for the worms to burrow in, the sand will hold in moisture, and the leaves are a good food source. And then you wrap a dark piece of construction paper or a cut up piece of a cut up paper bag around it, and tape it in place. That helps block out the light and makes the worms a little more comfortable. Um, Add the worms in, add some more dried leaves, and then you leave the bottle for a day or two. You remove the paper and take a look, and you can see what the worms are doing. Um, Cover it back up and peek at them every once in a while. And then once you're all done at the end of the week, you can return the worms back to outside. You can expand on this by adding a nature walk that you can then dig up the worms. You can, of course, purchase worms if you'd rather, but if you want to add that element of a nature walk, you could continue the decomposition conversation, talking about what areas worms might be found in, what they prefer, what they need, and where, therefore, you should dig to collect the worms, dig some up, and then add them to the worm hotels. You could add an outreach element by partnering with sustainability groups or a local gardener who could come talk about composting, what it is and how it works. Discovering layers on page 221 is another STEM activity. This one is exploring archaeology and the use of stratigraphy to determine a timeline for found artifacts. So the idea of stratigraphy is assuming the layers are undisturbed. The lowest level of soil contains older artifacts, and as you get closer to the surface, those would be newer artifacts. Children can create a model using different color layers of building bricks, like in the image on the screen there. They can then color a provided sheet of artifacts. There's resource links in the manual for this program that provide an artifact printable that can be colored and cut out. They then will attach them with glue dots or a piece of tape to the layers where they would be shown. So again, they would want to put the older artifacts lower and then so on to the newer artifacts closer to the surface. You could expand this for participants by including some more detailed information about soil layers or discuss archaeology sites in your state or local area. Some of you might have some great partners that you could bring in for this, and talk about areas in your community, your state, and maybe even talk about items that were found there. Participants could even draw their own artifacts for this if they prefer, whether it's of their own imagining or maybe following a partner talk where they learn about a site in their area and then they draw the artifacts based on that. There are also several parties or bigger events in the manual. The Dino Olympics on page 27 has several different games that can work for children, tweens, teens, or it can even be billed as a family event. Teens can compete against each other. Teams, sorry, not teens, it could be teens, but teams can compete against each other at one station at a time, or they can rotate around and compare scores at the end. Or individuals can even compete against each other within each group at the different station. It really depends on the size of your group, the time frame, your space. But you can decide that. This program has a variety of minute-to-minute style games. They're fun and quick and get people moving and get people comfortable and engaged. It also includes an icebreaker activity, and there's lots of printables that go with this program, including a certificate. If you want to do that for winners or give small prizes, you can decide. Fossil Fest on page 172 is another fun event that could focus on children and tweens, or be more of a family event. This program includes some fun themed decoration ideas in the manual that you can prepare and do ahead of time, so you really create a great fun environment. And then the program includes some STEM and craft stations. I won't list each station because there are several of them, but a few examples are the Braille and ASL puzzle, where participants use provided resources and they determine what words are on the sheet. There's a Dino bookmark craft, there's shrinky dinks, there's a STEM activity called Dino Poo Detective, where pudding cups and other food items are prepared for participants to then determine if they represent dinos that are herbivores or carnivores. So lots of fun hands-on activities. The Jurassic Spelling Bee, page 189, is another. This would be a fun adult event. Could also be younger too. You could reach out to other organizations if you want to hold this offsite, if it's an adult event. Use your imagination, but this could definitely be a family event too. This family spelling, or I'm sorry, the spelling competition can be run like a typical spelling bee, but it focuses around dinosaur names and other related words. There's lots of info in the manual that covers important planning things or logistics for spelling bees. So there's lots of info in there. And the manual also includes a list of words and accompanying sentences to get the ball rolling. You can then add to the list to make it adjust for your age range that you're focusing on, which could be one, it could be children's, it could be adults, or it could be where you have multiple rounds with different age ranges and different difficulty levels. I wanted to also highlight a few America 250 related programs too. This first one is underwater fireworks, fittingly on page 250. This can be done in groups with a staff person leading the steps as you go, leading through the steps as you go. Or you can have the library staff person demonstrate all the steps at the beginning and then the group work through at their own speed. Here are the steps to it. So, you know, it's a cup, you take a couple cups of water and you add that to a clear jar and you set that aside. In a second smaller jar, you add a few tablespoons of vegetable oil. To the vegetable oil, you add several drops or a few drops of different food colorings of your choice. It could be multiple colors. And then you take a fork and mix up the oil and coloring. This you'll see doesn't mix the two. It really just breaks the color droplets into many smaller drops. Then you pour the oil and color into the jar of water and encourage them to watch closely. You'll see that the oil stays on the top of the water and the food coloring drops slowly through the water and disperses through the water. It drops through the oil down to the water and then disperses through the water, making it look like underwater fireworks. So density is the explanation for how these materials react. The oil is less dense than the water, so it sits on top, and the coloring is more dense, so it's going to sink down through the oil. You can prompt them to observe after the fact. You can encourage them to predict what will happen before you pour it in. You can decide what to do here. But after observing this and discussing this, you could extend this by allowing groups to change up the variables to see how things might be affected. Would the result be different if the water was warm or cold? Does temperature matter? Would different oils work differently? Would it be a slower or faster reaction to get those fireworks going? Are there other things they want to talk about adjusting for different results? Depending on the age and availability of materials, you can allow them to try different variations using the printout that I have an image of this on the screen here. That allows them to make predictions for the different experiments and document their observations. There are many adaptations and tips and ideas for this program in the manual, along with lots of different resources that can help guide you through leading this activity. So even if science isn't your comfort zone, you can totally do this one. Note that clean up on this one, you don't want to pour all that oil down the drain, and that's noted in the manual, so just watch for that. Crafting the Stars and Stripes on page 265 is a craft geared for adults, definitely be enjoyed by teens too. You hot glue paint sticks together and then add additional sticks to the back to brace the structure, and that creates the overall flag structure. And then you paint on a blue square on the top left corner using the 3 sticks as a guide. You can stamp or draw on stars then with white paint, and then you paint red and white stripes following those paint sticks as a guide, and you add a piece of twine for hanging. Makes for a really fun decoration. Or the overall flag structure could be used to make a different sort of decor. Instead of a flag, you could add stencils and lots of different colors and leave it open-ended for them to make whatever kind of wall hanging they'd like. Flag Finders on page 254 is a flag scavenger hunt that can be multi-generational and can last a few days or the whole summer. It's very low cost. It's a passive program and it can be adaptable to different levels of engagement. It can be as simple as handing out the printable that is found in the manual, where people simply list where they find flags around the town and see how many they can find. You can then offer a small prize when they bring their paper back, or when they bring their paper back, maybe they're entered into a prize drawing. You could also customize this for your community if you'd like. You take pictures of the flags in your area and make sure you include a little bit of surrounding area in those images. Then you add those images to a handout that then they take around to try to identify where those flags are. They write their answers, and that's the sheet they turn in. This version could also be shared slowly through social media. If you're doing images, you could post a photo a week for people to then view on social media and comment on the post to guess where it's at. Then, as I mentioned earlier, this year we've incorporated some partnership programs into its own chapter, which is chapter 7 this year. This year so far, we have some information from SciStarter on citizen science programs and a printable from Highlights. And like I said before, too, there might be more. And if so, we'll post those on the online manual. SciStarter program includes nice information about how to use the provided resources to introduce the different citizen science programs. There are lots of engaging programs here. There's info on how to get started, materials needed, background info, what info they'll collect, and then how to submit it. This is great for adults, but can also be for teens and families and even younger kids with some guidance. For example, the example I put online, or I'm sorry, on the screen here is Project Squirrel. And that is simply you learn how to identify squirrels in your area, and then you count them when you see them and you submit those numbers. And they use that those numbers to help inform them on pre-squirrel ecology in your area. So you could integrate one of these programs into an in-person program with a particular age group or multi-generational program, show them how to set up the free citizen science account, work through the tools, highlight the process on a larger screen so everyone can see and is comfortable with it. And then send patrons home with a flyer that reminds them where to visit, how to submit their info so they can continue it on their own. Or depending on the project, you could even make this a weekly club where maybe people want to get together and discuss what they're seeing. Maybe they're tracking squirrels or birds or temperature or different things. And maybe they get together, talk about their findings, and then you submit it as a group. So these projects can definitely be passive and just totally something you pass on to your patrons, or you can incorporate it into a program to add more engagement and community to the activity. So I hope this has given you some ideas for next summer and some encouragement to really dig into the manual and have some fun with adaptations and making the program work best for you and your library. I'd encourage you to check out the CSLP's official summer library programming group on Facebook. There's so many libraries that share some great program ideas there, so I'm sure you'll find some there and maybe you have some to share. Our Pinterest page is available and we'll have some continue to have some information there. Also, like I said, check back to our online manual. We'll continue to add there. Our CSLP newsletter will have some manual highlights coming up, and we also sometimes share some ideas from our member libraries. And then a reminder too that this year's password gets you into previous manuals too. So if you want to dig into those previous manuals, you still have access to those online. So I hope you guys have lots of fun programming this summer. There's so many great ideas. And we have some time for questions if anybody has any.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. We actually do not have any unanswered questions in the Q&A, which is great. Yay, you've answered all their questions. However, I didn't know if you had seen all the ideas that have been flooding the chat during your presentation.
So I originally had the chat on because I like to see it. And then there were so many ideas that I had to close it because I was like, oh, I'm going to start reading those instead of giving my presentation. So yeah, I'm excited to look back at that. And I'm excited that everyone's sharing because the librarians are the best resource for them to share the ideas here with each other. That's perfect. That's what we want. So great. Yeah. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. They're loving the flag scavenger hunt. Let me see. The worm hotel, you know, just a lot of different additional ideas from what you presented. Yeah. Oh,
And I will say there's a lot of resources and links in here, and some of them might get the ball rolling on some partnership ideas. Some of them can really expand your programming ideas. So make sure you click and check out those adaptations and those tips and those resources. There are so many other ideas beyond what's just in the manual.
yeah.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thank
well, let's see. I'm just checking the Q&A real quick. Is it possible to share your Pinterest link?
Yes, it's on
I can
the
do that,
slide.
Amanda.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, we're
Okay.
still building that. So if there's not as much now, there will continue to be more added. That's a process. So there'll be more.
Okay. I believe that's all the questions. Oh, there is one from Krista. Where was the worm hotel idea? I know you had presented the page number. Do you happen to remember that page number?
Yes, I will grab it quick. Give me just a second. It's page 72. And these slides will be posted later. So if there's anything that you want to look at later or remind yourself of a page number, those will be available. But yeah, that one is page 72. And again, the table of contents, like I said, is linked. The index is really handy for exploring. So hopefully you guys can dig in and find these and lots more that I didn't have time to share. There's so many great ideas. It's hard to choose what to highlight and what not to. So there's so many more.
And we had several questions about getting into the manual, and Melissa has been posting about contacting her in the chat or contacting your state rep for the code.
Yes, yeah. If you don't know where your code is, yes, go ahead and contact your state rep and they can hook you up so you can get online and find the manual. You can get artwork. Like I said, there are additional things that are popping up on the online manual that won't be in the printed manual, the 3D printing files, lots of great stuff.
Yeah. Oh, Anonymous, how does one go about buying worms?
Well, I think you can get them, like you can even get them at a gas station, I think, like night crawlers for fishing. So yes, that you could do it that way, or you can dig for your own. We'll leave that up to you. Or you can probably even convince some kids to go dig some up for you. I'm sure you could wrangle some to do that, and that would be a nice in-between option.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions that we have.
Great.
All right, Abby?
Can you hear me? There we go. It likes to mute me, even though I got new headphones. Ugh. Technology is great. Thank you so much, Amanda. I think there's a lot of really great ideas. I think that the manual committees and you have really knocked it out of the park. I'm very excited to really dig through that manual and see, dig, it's a dinosaur joke, through the manual and see what I can do with my kiddos this year. I am very excited. I think everybody else is too. I see some great stuff in the chat, which is always great. And of course, we will save this chat and we will share that out after the webinar is over. We will share that chat so that way you will have it. So our next one is going to be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So do the math if you aren't in Eastern Standard Time. And we will be talking to a couple of people from the Detroit Zoo about different programming. So join us back at 2 o'clock Eastern, and we will see you all then.